From Central Ohio's #1 source for news, this is 10 TV Eyewitness News.
The announcement's about to be made. Ohio's own John Glenn going back to outer space. Good afternoon. I'm Jerry Revish.
And I'm Andrea Cameron. Thanks for joining us.
2, 1, 0, liftoff.
Lots of us will remember these pictures back in 1962 when John Glenn became the first American to orbit the Earth. Now NASA is about to hold a news conference to announce that the astronaut turned U.S. Senator returns again as an astronaut. 10 TV's Dave Kaler joins us live from our nation's capital with our top story today, where that news conference is just about to get underway. Dave?
Yeah, Andrea did. It just got underway. We are here at NASA headquarters in Washington, D.C. Daniel Golden, the administrator at NASA, is on the podium to announce that John Glenn will fly in the Space Shuttle Discovery on October the 8th as a payload specialist. Let's go now to that announcement.
What an incredible day for John Glenn, for Ohio, for NASA, but most of all, what a great day for America. So it is my distinct pleasure to introduce NASA's newest and oldest astronaut, John Glenn.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan, very much for that over-generous introduction here today. I guess Annie and I attended a dinner back home in Ohio not too long ago in which the person introducing me got all carried away with accolades and accomplishments I never dreamed of having in this life or the next, and finished this introduction by finally saying, "There are few truly great men in this world." And then he introduced me. Now that's rather heady. And going home that night, I guess I was still thinking about it and mentally basking in the glow of that introduction. And I said, Annie, you know, if you think about it, there aren't very many really, truly great Americans in this world. And it took her about 10 seconds to say, "Let me tell you something, there's sure one less than you think there is."
Glenn is in Houston, reacquainting himself with space travel. As John Glenn begins to suit up here, that's when the mission really begins to heat up. John has been meeting more often with the crew members here, and now they're starting to gel, according to some people. Even though the mood is upbeat here at the Johnson Space Center, questions continue to surface about John Glenn's age. NASA officials did tell us today that plans are being made just in case Glenn does suffer from fatigue. Glenn's age was the big topic this day. With training virtually done, the mission's flight director finally revealed to me that Glenn's age can't be rolled out for things that could go wrong in space, like fatigue.
We also try to train other crew members as backups. As you point out, fatigue can be a factor for crew members of any age.
Engeloff says some 15 experiments would be sacrificed if Glenn tires in space. But Glenn made reassurance that he's ready.
Will you be able to avoid the fatigue factors that may exist up there?
Yes.
It's an enormous undertaking trying to send John Glenn and the rest of the Discovery crew back to space. But it's been a tough one, too, for NASA officials, trying to overcome some problem areas. With all the hype of John Glenn going back to space, all the news is centered around his training. But we can't forget this mission has developed some problems, and they're glitches NASA is trying to overcome. John Glenn's training was one of them. Glenn had trouble juggling his schedule as a senator and his training as an astronaut. It wasn't until 3 months before liftoff that Glenn finally trained with the rest of the crew. NASA officials would have liked it sooner. Back in September, the shuttle was moved out to the launch pad, a 4-mile trek from the vehicle assembly building. But Hurricane George forced NASA officials to make plans to bring it back. Fortunately, the shuttle rode out the storm.
8. We have a go for simulated engine start. 5.
October 9th, the only mock launch. Launch Control developed communication problems with the shuttle. It wasn't a serious glitch, but it was one they had to fix. And Flight Director Phil Engeloff told us the experiment run-throughs have been plagued with procedural problems.
You go through an experiment and you find out that, well, you assumed that something was going to be powered up here, but it's not, so you have to go back and add a power-up step for that piece of peripheral equipment.
Engeloff said these problems typically develop. None have been so serious that it forced a delay. But he did say they'll be dealing with these small problems all the way up to launch day. Tino Ramos, 10 TV, Eyewitness News.
NASA hopes Mitch won't mess up Thursday's shuttle launch, though. The storm could push winds at the Kennedy Space Center above 17 miles an hour. Now, these are live pictures from the Cape. If the winds go past 20 miles an hour, John Glenn's historic return to space could be delayed. Doppler 10 meteorologist Chris Shumway is in the Weather Center tracking the storm. Mitch is nowhere near Florida, but we're hearing that there's a 30% chance the launch could be delayed, Chris.
Right. Still a slight chance there could be a delay. The effect would be the winds, not necessarily around the storm, of course, because it's a long way from Florida, but it does affect the wind patterns as far away as Florida, giving a good east wind up here. There's also high pressure over the southeast, and that kind of swirls the wind in off the Atlantic. It's been pretty breezy for a few days, but the good news there for the launch is that as the hurricane continues to track a little bit to the west, the wind pressure gradient or the air pressure gradient may relax a little bit, and that may put wind speeds down a little. But speaking of the hurricane, winds now 165 miles an hour, still a catastrophic large hurricane headed again for, it looks like the Yucatan to Belize and Honduras. All hurricane warnings up for those areas right now, and we'll keep watching it, of course. For more on the Discovery Shuttle mission, let's go over to Andrea Camber.
All right, Chris, thanks a lot. Actually, that's really good news, what you told us, because a lot of people are banking on the shuttle going up as scheduled on Thursday. 10 TV's Tino Ramos, one of the people. He joins us now from the Kennedy Space Center. And Tino, you look alone today, but it sounds like there's going to be a couple 100,000 people with you soon.
I tell you what, there are a lot of people already here. That's the thing about it too, Andrea. The big focus on John Glenn going up has brought a big resurgence for the space shuttle. And not only will the people be watching it, but the media too. This is our perch that we have here, but we also want to show you too. Look at all the scaffolding that's down here. And as we look further on down here, we can see the risers where hundreds of journalists will be down here, if not thousands of journalists, to record this particular event. Now, this is just the front here. Take a look at some of the video that we have. We want to show you some of the technology in. Look at all these satellite trucks. We counted over 40 satellite trucks that are here, hundreds of miles of cables. We talked with some of the phone people. They said 3,000 phone lines have been installed here. Just to show you how big this thing is going to be media-wise, take a look at some of these numbers we have. We did some comparison here. The Mercury 6, that was John Glenn's original launch. 379 pieces of media were here. For STS-1, that's the first shuttle mission. 2,707 people were here from the media. And look at this one. This launch could draw as much as 3,700 people here from the media alone just to cover this event. Look at that. That's 1,000 more. Just an incredible amount of people are here. And we have to remember, too, these are not only just American journalists here. We have journalists here from Europe because of Pedro Duque, and, of course, from Japan because of Shiaki Mukai, the Japanese passenger that's on here. This is just incredible, the size of this thing, Andrea. And, of course, we're going to bring it all to you live.
What a great event it's going to be, bringing so much attention back to the space program. That's
Absolutely.
Really critical. Tino, thanks a lot. Tino Ramos reporting for us from Kennedy Space Center.
That is right, Andrea. The excitement is really building now at the Kennedy Space Center. In fact, that's Discovery right over my left shoulder. The weather is perfect. There are no major technical problems, and the astronauts, well, they're good to go. This afternoon, they will be up in the air flying T-38 training jets. The idea is to keep their skills sharp before liftoff. They also got to see their families one last time. But unlike the pictures from Monday, today it is at a distance because the crew is in a pre-launch medical quarantine. You may know John Glenn's wife Annie is here at the Kennedy Space Center. So are his 2 children and his 2 grandchildren. And despite all the hoopla surrounding this historic mission, the countdown has been nearly flawless. NASA bosses say they are focused on the launch ahead of them.
5, 4.
Godspeed, John Glenn.
Live from the Kennedy Space Center, 10 TV Eyewitness News presents Countdown to Discovery, John Glenn's return to space.
This ship is very different from the first one. Now, we held our breath as John Glenn rocketed into space 36 years ago. The first American to cross into the final frontier is preparing tonight for a new mission of discovery. Good evening, everyone. I am Angela Pace. Dave Kaler will join me in just a moment from the Discovery Update Center in Columbus at WBNS. 100% chance for launch. All systems appear to be go for John Glenn and the rest of the crew of the Shuttle Discovery. Liftoff is scheduled for 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Now, tonight, we are going to walk you through the 8-day mission to prepare you for tomorrow's historic launch. She was the first woman astronaut to walk in space, but many of you back home know her as the head of COSI. Time now to bring Dr. Catherine Sullivan and welcome her into the 10 TV Discovery team. This has got to bring back a lot of memories for you.
Well, it really does, Angela. The last day before launch is a final sort of neatening up of last-minute checks, technically, chat with your family, and what I know the crew did about 8:30 this evening, since they launched during the daytime and nobody can resist the sight of the orbiter gleaming on the pad once the service structure is pulled back. They went out to the pad too to just stand there in awe and marvel at this craft.
So they didn't want to wait till tomorrow.
There's no way they're going to wait for tomorrow. It won't look as gleamingly bright and as spectacular in the morning. It'll look spectacular in a different way, but this is a sight no astronaut likes to miss.
It really is.
From WBNS 10 TV, your 24-hour news source. This is 10 TV Eyewitness News.
Well, this is John Glenn's big day.
We're all feeling pretty good about it, though, aren't we?
We are. It's
pretty
a big
proud to have him as an Ohioan. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. An estimated 250,000 people are expected to be there to watch John Glenn and his 6 crewmates take off in the Space Shuttle Discovery. It happens at 2 o'clock this afternoon. Glenn's launch is, of course, our top story today at noon. These are live pictures from the Kennedy Space Center, the crew already on board Discovery. And it's already been a very long day. Bright and early at 5 o'clock this morning, people pulled in and staked out their spots on the Cape. The weather is picture perfect in Florida and the countdown is proceeding as planned. As we begin our countdown to Discovery today, Jerry joins us from our Discovery Update Center. Jerry?
Well, that's right. All 7 astronauts were up around 8 o'clock this morning and out to that pad by 11:15. 10 TV's Dave Kaler and Angela Pace got an early start too this morning. Dave joins us live now at the Kennedy Space Center, where the space shuttle crew is getting ready to seal that hatch. Right, Dave and Andrea?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, after months of training and all the media hype, it comes down to one day. Yep. Just one day, and that is today. The 7 astronauts of the Discovery Space Shuttle Discovery are being strapped in, as you saw there a few moments ago. They're out on the pad. They've had a great morning. And this should be one of the largest crowds ever to see the Space Shuttle lift off, or lift-off Space Shuttle here at Cape Canaveral. And we understand the #1 fan, the President of the United States, just arrived minutes ago.
But I think the President is going to have to take a back seat to one very important man, because the eyes of the world today are focused on a man from a small town in eastern Ohio, not too far from Columbus. John Glenn is an astronaut once again, and he has already had a very busy morning. John Glenn has put on and taken off this spacesuit more times than he cares to remember. But after waiting...
We'd like to introduce Dr. Bernadine Healy of the Ohio State University Medical School to answer some questions on the health issue. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Great to be here.
Is he too old to fly?
Well, I don't think we can say that, because we don't have the answers. And actually, Senator Glenn is going to provide extraordinary information on a very fit 77-year-old man who has clearly some of the age change that occur in anybody when they approach that time, both in their muscles, their bones, their heart, their brain, and we're going to find out. And I think
one individual who may not know as much as Kathy Sullivan, but give him some time, he will. Will Upton, you may recall, he's part of our 10 TV broadcast team. Will, when we met up this morning, you told me you were nervous. How come?
Well, I'm just nervous and yet excited, because it's my first shuttle launch. And
T-minus 20 seconds. T-minus 15. T-minus 10, 9, 8. We have a go for engine start. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Booster ignition and liftoff of Discovery with a crew of 6 astronaut heroes and 1 American legend.
Hey, good line. So that's what Lisa was going to say. Look at that. It's like a candle.
Roger, roll, Discovery.
Oh, my God.
Was I right?
Yeah.
You can actually feel.
You're watching Mission Discovery, special coverage from 10 TV Eyewitness News and the Ohio News Network, with 10 TV's Dave Kaler, Angela Pace, and ONN's Deborah Knapp.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, We have a go for engine start. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Booster ignition and liftoff of Discovery with a crew of 6 astronaut heroes and 1 American legend.
Was launched on his second space mission in his career, a flawless liftoff for the shuttle Discovery on a beautiful day here at Cape Canaveral, and just the roar of applause, the roar of approval that went up when that shuttle finally did lift off. It was something to be seen and heard.
Well, after you see those pictures and you see that the shuttle had taken off, it's all in Mission Control's hands now out in Houston, Texas, and that's where our Tino Ramos is right now. Tino?
Yeah, Dave, they were really happy to see this thing go. You know, we were watching some of the employees here at the training center. That's where we're located here on the Johnson Space Center, and they had their eyes riveted.
After all, about 2/3 of astronauts who go into space do feel a little nauseous the first day or two, but Senator Glenn continues to feel just fine.
No, I haven't had any of that so far. It's been great, and I've been quite comfortable and haven't had any of that.
Tino Ramos, WBNS TV out of Columbus, Ohio. This is for Senator Glenn. Senator, 2 weeks ago you told me, or at least I asked you, if you could meet the physical demands on your aging body up in space, and you gave me a definitive yes. Now that you're nearing the end of your mission, has this been more physically demanding than you had expected it to be?
No. I remember the one-word answer I gave you. I didn't mean to be a smart aleck that day at the press conference, but I feel very strongly about that. No, there have been changes, and it's been interesting to observe myself. The fluid shift in the body that occurred, I probably still look a little fat-faced up here. I don't know whether the others are pretty well down. Mine feels, I think I'm pretty well down. But I go through the same things, and we've been doing, I have a number of blood samples. I think I'm up to...
Commander's taking over Space Shuttle Discovery manually at this time.
Dave, we just heard the sonic boom. We just heard the sonic boom here, so we just broke the barrier here. We're now kind of, there we go. I don't know if you heard that just now, Dave.
We got it here, yeah.
Yeah, so it should be entering into our physical sight at this point. We're kind of still looking for it in the air, but again, you can see the great video, or the view right now we're seeing through the camera shots.
10 seconds away from touchdown.
Okay, Catherine, can you pick it up here for us and tell us what's going on?
From the landing
well, they're about 68 miles out now. They're making their
hour.
final right turn.
Kurt Brown at the controls.
And in just a couple more seconds, they'll begin that this is the lineup turn to get them lined up on the runway. They just passed up the call to say use the drag chute only in an emergency because of the loss of the drag chute cover. They expected that. The messages gave them that this morning.
Other than at the commander's discretion today.
Eileen Hawley will probably give us a real good blow-by-blow through here, and we can hear the final conversations between Kurt and the
2 minutes and 30
Capcom.
seconds away from a landing at the Kennedy Space Center.
You're on an airliner, 3 miles, 15,000 feet still up in the air. You've got about 20 minutes to go to touchdown.
We have the runway in sight.
Okay, now they can see the runway.
Runway in sight.
Although they've been in a right bank, and the view of the runway was apparent to Steve Lindsay in the right seat, he is now in a position where the pilot and the commander can both see the runway.
If you look at the tail of the orbiter here, Dave, you can see it looks like it's split open in the back. That's true. The rudder actually splits into 2 halves as a speed brake. And the angle she's descending at and her speed, it's about 4 times steeper than an airliner's angle of descent, and right now about twice as fast.
Pilot Steve Lindsay has now armed the landing gear, and he's waiting to just push that button to lower him at 300 feet.
You can get a sense of the sink rate there. Here's the gear coming down, so they're below 300 feet now. Hear the noise. It's a very large vehicle ripping a path through the air.
Wow.
Main gear touchdown.
As predicted, no issue with the drag chute. They'll inspect it, of course, after landing and see what state it's really in.
And nose gear touchdown.
And he's home.
Discovery rolls out on runway 33, concluding a journey of 3.6 million miles and a moment in history.
A number of minutes for crews on the ground.
Okay, now we want to go to Tino Ramos, who was down at the Kennedy Space Center. Tino, did you like that landing?
Oh my goodness! You know, I happened to miss the launch. I was at Johnson at the time, so I was glad I came back. What a sight it was coming up from our area. It came just on the angle on my line of sight at this point. A very large vehicle, and it's something that I always wanted to see land itself. But you know, it's indicative of this entire mission. Very textbook for a landing too, and they've been reiterating.